My name is Anna, and I am 26 years old. I work as a medical researcher in Boston, where my life used to be relatively normal. Growing up, my sister Sophia and I were close, but everything changed when my parents crossed a line I never imagined possible. They forged my medical records to force me into being a surrogate for my sister. When I refused, they called me selfish and unleashed a pressure campaign that shook my entire family to its core. Before I begin my story, let me know where you are watching from, hit like and subscribe, because family boundaries should never include claiming ownership of someone else's body. I grew up in a modest suburban home in Massachusetts with my parents, Margaret and Thomas Hamilton. From the earliest days, I can remember there was always a clear favorite in our family. My sister Sophia, 4 years older than me, received the bulk of their attention, praise, and financial support. This wasn't something they tried to hide either. My mother would often say things like, Sophia just needs a little extra love, or your sister is more sensitive than you are. Despite the imbalanced attention, I focused on my studies. While Sophia struggled academically, I excelled. By high school, I was taking advanced placement classes and earning scholarships. My parents acknowledged my achievements with brief nods and quick congratulations before returning their focus to Sophia and her latest drama or accomplishment. When I was accepted to Harvard on a partial scholarship for biochemistry, my parents seemed more concerned about how Sophia felt about it than proud of my achievement. What resonated with me was my mother's comment, "Don't brag about this to your sister. She tried for Harvard too, remember?" That single statement summarized our family dynamic perfectly. After college, I secured a position as a research assistant at Massachusetts General Hospital. Within 3 years, I had worked my way up to leading my own research projects. My career was thriving, and I felt fulfilled professionally, even if my family life remained complicated. Meanwhile, Sophia had married James Thompson, her college sweetheart at 32. Almost immediately after the wedding, they began trying for a baby. What should have been a joyous time quickly turned into a source of deep sadness. After months of trying naturally, they consulted fertility specialists who discovered Sophia had several issues that made conception difficult. She had endometriosis, diminished ovarian reserve, and some structural problems with her uterus. They tried everything. Multiple rounds of IVF drained their savings account. Each failure sent Sophia into deeper depression. My parents, especially my mother, became increasingly consumed with Sophia's fertility struggles. Family conversations inevitably turned to the latest treatment, the newest specialist, or how devastated Sophia was feeling. During this time, I met Michael Parker, a software engineer who worked near my hospital. We connected instantly over our shared love of hiking and scientific documentaries. Unlike my family, Michael saw me completely. He valued my opinions, celebrated my successes, and supported my independence. For the first time, I experienced what it felt like to be someone's priority. As Sophia's fertility journey continued without success, I noticed subtle changes in how my parents interacted with me. Comments like, "You don't know how lucky you are," or "Your sister would give anything to have what comes naturally to you," became more frequent. My mother once asked somewhat casually, "Have you ever thought about how you could help your sister?" I assumed she meant emotionally or financially, so I agreed that I was trying my best to be supportive. Looking back, I should have recognized the signs. At Thanksgiving last year, I caught my parents and Sophia whispering in the kitchen. They stopped abruptly when I entered. My mother looked flushed, my father uncomfortable, and Sophia had tears in her eyes. When I asked what was wrong, my mother simply said, "Just talking about family matters, nothing for you to worry about." The strange tension continued throughout dinner with meaningful glances exchanged across the table. I mentioned this odd behavior to Michael afterward. He suggested they might be planning a surprise for me, like a birthday party. I was turning 26 the following month. How I wish he had been right. In early December, my parents invited me to dinner. The invitation came via a formal phone call from my father, which was unusual. Typically, my mother would just text me about family dinners. My father said they had something important to discuss and asked if I could come alone without Michael. That should have been another red flag. I arrived at my parents' home on a cold Sunday evening to find not just them, but also Sophia and James waiting. The dining room table was set with the good china they usually reserve for major holidays. A bottle of expensive wine was breathing on the sideboard. My mother seemed nervous, dropping a spoon twice while serving the soup. Dinner conversation felt strained and artificial. We talked about the weather, a cousin getting engaged, and a new restaurant in the neighborhood. No one mentioned why we were all gathered there. Finally, as my mother served coffee and my father's homemade apple pie, my father cleared his throat. Family is the most important thing we have, he began in a rehearsed tone. The bonds between siblings are particularly special. Something in his voice made my stomach tighten. Anna, my father continued, you know how much Sophia and James have struggled to have a child. They've tried everything medically possible for them. I nodded, glancing at Sophia, who was staring into her coffee cup. We've been discussing as a family, he said, gesturing to include everyone but me. And we believe we've found a solution, one that would be the greatest gift one sister could give another. The room fell silent. I looked from face to face, trying to understand. We want you to be a surrogate for us, Sophia finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. We have 3 viable embryos left from our last IVF cycle. The doctors could implant them in you, and you could carry our baby. I was stunned. My first thought was that they were asking for egg donation, which would be a big request, but at least somewhat understandable. You want me to carry your baby? I clarified. Like be pregnant for 9 months? James nodded eagerly. You are young and healthy. The doctor said you'd be an ideal candidate. Something in his phrasing caught my attention. The doctors said, I repeated. What doctors? When did you discuss this with doctors? My parents exchanged glances. We've had some preliminary consultations, my mother admitted, just to see if it would be possible. You discussed my medical suitability with doctors without my knowledge or consent. I felt a chill run through me. We didn't share your actual medical records, my father said dismissively. We just described you generally. Young, healthy, never pregnant before. This is a lot to take in, I said, pushing my untouched pie away. I need time to think about this. Of course, darling, my mother said, patting my hand. But do think quickly. Sophia's doctor said timing is important with the remaining embryos. The drive home was a blur of tears and confusion. I called Michael as soon as I got to my apartment. His outrage matched my shock. They have no right to ask that of you, he said firmly. No right at all. Over the next few days, I researched surrogacy extensively. The physical risks were significant potential complications during pregnancy and delivery, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, and postpartum depression. There would be multiple medical procedures, hormone treatments, and regular invasive examinations. Beyond the physical aspects, being a surrogate would mean putting my career on hold. I was in the middle of important research that could lead to a promotion. Pregnancy would mean stepping back from the lab due to safety protocols around certain chemicals. There were emotional considerations too. How would I feel carrying a child that I would then give away even to my sister? Would it affect my relationship with the child as their aunt? How would it impact my relationship with Sophia and James long term? After careful consideration and many discussions with Michael, I made my decision. I sent a group text to my parents. Sophia and James, I am deeply sorry, but after careful consideration, I cannot be a surrogate. I hope you understand this is not a decision I make lightly, and I still want to support you in other ways. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone exploded with calls and individual texts. My mother's voicemail was tearful and guilt-inducing. How could you do this to your sister, after all we've done for you? My father was cold and direct. We need to discuss this further. Your sister needs you. James was diplomatic, but clearly disappointed. Sophia's message hurt the most. I guess I know now how much family really means to you. 3 weeks after I declined to be a surrogate, I received a call from someone named Dr. Patterson from Boston Fertility Partners. The receptionist said the doctor needed to speak with me about my upcoming consultation. What consultation, I asked, confused. According to our records, you have an initial surrogacy screening appointment scheduled for next Tuesday, she explained. There must be some mistake, I said. I never made such an appointment. The receptionist sounded puzzled. I have the paperwork right here. It was submitted last week, all signed and everything. A cold feeling washed over me. I asked the receptionist to email me copies of whatever paperwork they had, claiming I wanted to review it before the appointment. Within minutes, my inbox contained several documents that made my blood run cold. There were intake forms, medical history questionnaires, and preliminary surrogacy agreement papers, all bearing what appeared to be my signature. But I had never seen these documents before, let alone sign them. The medical history was accurate, which was perhaps the most disturbing part. Someone had access to details about my health that should have been private. I immediately drove to Boston Fertility Partners to clear up the situation. When I arrived, I asked to speak with Dr. Patterson directly. After explaining there had been a serious error, I was ushered into his office. Dr. Patterson was a kind-looking man in his 50s. He seemed genuinely concerned when I told him I had never made the appointment or filled out any paperwork. "This is highly unusual," he said, reviewing the documents. "These forms indicate you're planning to be a gestational surrogate for your sister and brother-in-law. The signature matches the one on your driver's license." I explained that while my sister had asked me to be a surrogate, I had declined. Someone must have forged my signature and submitted these forms without my knowledge or consent. "That's a very serious accusation," Dr. Patterson said gravely. "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" I did, but I could hardly believe it. I asked Dr. Patterson if he could tell me who had brought in the paperwork. After checking with the front desk, he confirmed it had been submitted by a Margaret Hamilton, my mother. I felt physically ill. My parents had not only ignored my decision, but had actively forged medical documents in my name. The violation was overwhelming. That evening, I confronted my parents at their home. I brought printed copies of the forged documents and placed them on the kitchen table. "Can you explain these?" I asked, my voice shaking. They exchanged glances before my mother spoke. "We were just getting the process started," she said defensively. "We knew once you had time to think about it properly, you'd change your mind." "You forged my signature on medical documents," I said in disbelief. "That's illegal. Don't be so dramatic," my father scoffed. "We're family. We're just trying to help Sophia. By committing fraud in my name, you owe this to your sister," my father said coldly. "After everything we've done for you, all the advantages you've had." I looked at Sophia, who was sitting silently at the table. "Did you know about this?" Her expression was conflicted. "Not exactly," she said. "They said they were going to talk to you again, convince you." James, standing behind Sophia's chair, looked uncomfortable, but said nothing, deferring to my sister as usual. I felt violated in a way that was hard to articulate. My own parents had stolen my identity to force a pregnancy on me against my will. The people who should have protected me were trying to use my body without my consent. I consulted with a lawyer friend the next day. She confirmed that what my parents had done was forgery and potentially identity theft, both serious crimes. She offered to help me press charges, but despite everything, I couldn't imagine sending my parents to jail. Instead, I asked her to draft a formal cease and desist letter. The worst discovery came a few days later. I returned home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. Nothing valuable was missing, but my desk had been rummaged through. With growing horror, I realized my parents had somehow made copies of my ID and medical insurance cards. They had invaded my home to get the information they needed to continue their plan. The family pressure campaign began in earnest after I confronted my parents about the forged documents. What started as individual guilt trips soon expanded into a coordinated effort to break down my resistance. My parents took turns calling me daily. My father focused on duty and obligation. "Family comes first, Anna. Always has. This is bigger than your temporary discomfort." My mother went straight for emotional manipulation. "Do you know Sophia cries herself to sleep every night? Is your career really more important than your sister's?" Happiness. A group text from Sophia escalated things further. "Anna is destroying my last chance at motherhood. I always thought my sister would be there for me when I needed her most." I was wrong. Within days, extended family members began reaching out. My Aunt Linda called, clearly uncomfortable with her assigned task. "Anna, honey, I know it's not my place, but have you really thought this through? Carrying a baby for Sophia would be such a beautiful gift." When I asked who had prompted her call, she admitted my mother had asked her to talk some sense into me. Not everyone took their side. My cousin Jessica, who had always been something of a rebel in the family, sent me a supportive text. What they're asking is insane. Your body, your choice. Period. Stay strong. Sophia's social media became another battlefield. While she never mentioned me by name, her posts carried thinly veiled references. Another door closed in our fertility journey. Sometimes the people you expect to support you the most let you down the hardest. These posts generated waves of sympathetic comments, with family friends offering prayers and support. Those same family friends began approaching me in public. At the grocery store, my mother's friend Susan cornered me by the produce section. "Your mother is so worried about you, dear. Families should stick together in times of need." At church, my father's golf buddy mentioned casually, "Surrogacy is such a wonderful gift. My niece did it for her sister. Never regretted it for a minute." The invasion of privacy escalated when my parents showed up unannounced at my apartment one evening. Michael was there, thankfully. They brushed past me into the living room, my mother already talking about how we'd all sit down and work this out reasonably. Michael stood up, his voice firm but calm. "Margaret Thomas Anna has made her decision clear. I think you should respect that and leave." "You're part of the problem," my father snapped, filling her head with selfish ideas. "Respecting her bodily autonomy isn't selfish," Michael replied. The argument escalated until my father delivered his ultimatum. "If you don't do this for your sister, don't consider yourself part of this family anymore." My mother added the financial threat. "And don't expect any more help with those student loans we co-signed." After they left, I discovered new concerning developments. Anonymous emails had been sent to my work account suggesting I was letting my family down. When I checked my insurance portal, I found login attempts from unfamiliar devices. Someone had tried to access my medical records online. The stress began affecting every aspect of my life. I had trouble sleeping, developed stress-induced migraines, and found it difficult to concentrate at work. Michael was increasingly concerned, suggesting I might need to consider a temporary restraining order against my parents. I never imagined family could become so toxic. I told him one night, fighting back tears, "How can they claim to love me while trying to control my body this way?" "They don't see you as a person with rights," he said softly. "They see you as a means to an end, and that's not love." 6 weeks into the pressure campaign, everything came to a head at my grandmother's birthday dinner. The entire extended family was gathered at my parents' house, a situation I tried to avoid, but couldn't without hurting my grandmother. I was helping in the kitchen when Sophia walked in. She looked terrible, with dark circles under her eyes and a gauntness to her face that hadn't been there before. When our eyes met, she burst into tears and ran from the room. The entire dinner party fell silent. After this public breakdown, James sought me out in the backyard. "Look, Anna," he said hesitantly, "I want you to know I'm not comfortable with how everyone's pressuring you. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. Then why haven't you said anything I asked?" He looked away. "Sophia wants this baby so badly. I can't bear to disappoint her again." Later that evening, my parents cornered me in the hallway. "This has gone on long enough," my father said. "Either you agree to be the surrogate or consider yourself cut off from this family. Financially, emotionally, completely." I was about to respond when my grandmother appeared behind them. "What's this about cutting Anna off?" she demanded. My parents tried to deflect, but Grandmother Martha wasn't easily fooled. After hearing both sides, she turned to my parents. "This is shameful behavior," she told them firmly. "Trying to force Anna to use her body against her will. I raised you better than this." Her support gave me strength, but the situation continued to deteriorate. The next day, I received a concerned email from my supervisor at work. "Anna, is everything all right at home? Your parents called about a family medical situation that might affect your work performance. I want to make sure you're getting the support you need." I was horrified. The boundaries kept falling. My parents had now invaded my workplace, potentially jeopardizing my professional reputation. The stress finally culminated in a panic attack during an important presentation. My hands shook, my vision tunneled, and I couldn't catch my breath. A colleague had to help me to a chair, while someone else finished presenting our research findings. The hospital doctor who examined me recommended medical leave. severe anxiety, possibly developing into depression, she noted on my chart. Would recommend temporary removal from stressors if possible. That afternoon, I asked Sophia to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. I needed to understand her role in all of this. Did you know about the forged medical records? I asked directly. She looked genuinely shocked. They did what? As I explained what our parents had done, her expression shifted from surprise to embarrassment. I knew they were determined to convince you, she admitted. But I never thought they would go that far. And the pressure campaign, the calls from relatives, the social media posts. She had the grace to look ashamed. I was desperate, Anna. But you're right, it was wrong. Our conversation was interrupted by an alert on my phone. Someone had again tried to access my fertility records through my patient portal. The IP address matched my parents' home network. When I confronted my parents that evening, they were unrepentant. In fact, they had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. We've scheduled the initial medical procedures, my mother announced. The fertility clinic has an opening next month for embryo transfer preparation. You did what? I was beyond shock now into some new territory of betrayal. It's all arranged, my father said with finality. The doctor agreed to speak with you again. He understands family dynamics can be complicated. I realized then that they were never going to stop. In their minds, my body was a resource to be used for Sophia's benefit regardless of my feelings or choices. This wasn't love or even family loyalty. It was control, pure and simple. That night, after crying in Michael's arms, I made the decision that would change everything. I would not only stand my ground, I would remove myself from their reach entirely. The morning after my parents revealed they'd scheduled surrogacy procedures without my consent, I took action. First, I contacted a different attorney, one specializing in medical law and restraining orders. The situation had escalated beyond a simple family disagreement. Anna, what you're describing is reproductive coercion, the attorney Sarah Goldstein explained during our consultation. The forgery alone is enough for a criminal case, but the ongoing harassment and attempts to access your medical records give us grounds for immediate protective measures. I didn't want to criminally charge my parents, but I needed legal protection. We settled on a strongly worded cease and desist letter outlining the criminal nature of their actions, combined with a temporary restraining order that would prevent them from contacting me, my workplace, or any medical facility regarding my health. Next, I secured my personal information. I changed every password to my accounts from email to banking to medical portals. I placed a freeze on my credit to prevent any new accounts being opened in my name. I contacted each of my healthcare providers to place additional security measures on my records requiring photo ID and in-person verification for any requests. Michael helped me install new locks and a security camera on my apartment door. The violation of my home had shaken me deeply, destroying my sense of safety in my own space. Through Michael's encouragement, I also found a support group for women who'd faced reproductive coercion. While most cases involved romantic partners, not parents, the psychological impact was similar. The stories I heard there were both heartbreaking and strengthening. Women who had been tricked into pregnancy, others whose birth control had been tampered with, and some who had been emotionally blackmailed into continuing unwanted pregnancies. Their experiences helped me recognize that what my parents were doing wasn't just wrong, it was abuse. I started seeing a therapist specializing in family trauma, Dr. Diana Chen. In our sessions, I began to unpack not just the current crisis, but the lifelong pattern of my parents favoring Sophia and expecting my compliance in all things. It seems like they've never really seen you as an autonomous person, Dr. Chen observed, more like an extension of themselves or a resource for the family. During this time, Michael received a job offer from a tech company in San Francisco. The timing seemed like fate intervening. He asked if I would consider moving with him starting fresh on the opposite coast. I don't want to rush you, he said, but I also think it might be exactly what you need right now, distance from all of this. The idea of escaping the constant pressure was incredibly appealing. I researched hospitals and research facilities in the Bay Area and discovered a position at UCSF that perfectly matched my qualifications. I applied immediately and was offered a video interview within days. As I was rebuilding my boundaries and planning my potential escape, an unexpected ally emerged. My grandmother called one evening. "I want to see you, Anna, away from the rest of them," she said. "Can you come to my apartment tomorrow?" When I arrived, she hugged me tighter than usual. "I'm ashamed of how your parents are behaving," she said bluntly. "In my day, we respected each other's choices, especially about something as personal as having children." She revealed that she had confronted my parents again after learning more details from my aunt. "They aren't listening to reason right now," she sighed. "This fixation on giving Sophia a baby has blinded them to the harm they're doing." Before I left, she pressed an envelope into my hands. Inside was a check for a substantial amount. "I can't undo what they've done," she said, "but I can help you get a fresh start if you need one." Another surprise came when James contacted me asking to meet for coffee. "Sophia doesn't know I'm here," he admitted, looking nervous. "But I need to apologize for my part in all this. I should have spoken up sooner about how wrong the pressure tactics were." He revealed something that shocked me further. "I don't think Sophia knows everything your parents have done," he said. "The forgery, the scheduled procedures, those were kept from her. She knows about the family pressure, obviously, but not the illegal stuff." I was processing this new information when I received the job offer from UCSF. It felt like the universe confirming my path forward. Michael and I began making plans to leave Boston quietly, telling only those who absolutely needed to know. As part of my healing process, I also began researching reproductive autonomy advocacy groups. I connected with a nonprofit that worked to protect surrogates and egg donors from exploitation and coercion. Their stories resonated deeply, and I found purpose in the idea of helping others avoid similar situations. The night before we planned to give notice on our apartment, I received a text from Sophia. "Can we talk just us? Please, no mom and dad." I hesitated, but ultimately agreed to meet at a public cafe. When she arrived, her eyes were red from crying. James told me everything she began. About the forged documents, the scheduled procedures. I swear, Anna, I didn't know how far they were taking this. The tears that followed seemed genuine. For the first time in months, my sister and I had an honest conversation about our family dynamic, the pressure we'd both experienced in different ways, and the damage that had been done to our relationship. "I never wanted a baby this way," she admitted, "not at the cost of hurting you." As we parted, she hugged me tightly. "Whatever you decide to do next, I understand," she whispered, "and I'm so sorry." 6 months after leaving Boston, I stood on the balcony of our San Francisco apartment, watching the fog roll in over the Golden Gate Bridge. The California sun felt different from the East Coast light, warmer, somehow more forgiving. My position at UCSF's research department had turned out to be even more fulfilling than I had hoped. I was leading a promising study on genetic factors in immune disorders with a team of dedicated researchers who valued my expertise and respected my boundaries. Michael and I were planning our wedding for the following spring. His unwavering support throughout the ordeal with my family had confirmed what I already knew, that he was my true partner in every sense. He had stood beside me during the darkest moments, never questioning my decisions or suggesting I compromise my autonomy for an easier path. Therapy continued to be an essential part of my healing. Dr. Chen had connected me with a colleague in San Francisco, Dr. Patel, who specialized in family estrangement. Our sessions helped me process the complicated grief of losing my parents, not to death, but to their own choices and actions. The distance and time had provided perspective I couldn't have found while still in the midst of the crisis. I could now see patterns that had existed my entire life, the subtle and not so subtle ways my parents had always prioritized Sophia's needs and wants above my own. One rainy Tuesday, I received a letter with a Boston postmark. Inside was a 10-page handwritten letter from Sophia. She wrote about the aftermath of my departure, how our parents had initially been furious, blaming Michael for turning me against the family. She described her own journey of realization, how seeing their behavior from the outside had opened her eyes to toxic patterns she had previously accepted as normal. The most surprising news was that she and James had separated. After months of counseling, we realized we wanted different things, she wrote. He still wants children above all else. I realized I needed to find myself first to exist as more than just a potential mother. She was in therapy now, addressing not just the infertility grief, but the family dynamics that had shaped her expectations and behavior. I'm starting to understand how unfair it was to place the burden of my happiness on you, she wrote. No one has the right to use another person's body, not even family, not even for something as important as having a child. Her apology seemed sincere. She acknowledged the pain she'd caused and expressed understanding of my decision to create distance. The letter ended with no request to reconnect, just an open door if I ever wanted to reach out. My parents, however, remained unchanged. According to Sophia, they still spoke about my departure as a selfish betrayal, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing on their part. They had even consulted a lawyer about their parental rights, somehow still believing they had authority over my medical decisions at 26. The lawyer had apparently set them straight about that delusion, at least. In San Francisco, I had found a community through my involvement with the Reproductive Autonomy Network, a nonprofit organization that advocated for surrogates, egg donors, and others facing coercion in family building. I shared my story anonymously through their platforms, connecting with others who'd faced similar violations. The work was healing, transforming my personal trauma into something that might help others establish and maintain their boundaries. Life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. 3 months after moving to California, I discovered I was pregnant. The news was both shocking and joyful, an unexpected gift in the midst of rebuilding my life. Michael and I had planned to wait until after the wedding, but this early arrival felt right somehow. After much consideration, I sent Sophia a brief email about the pregnancy. Her response was gracious and genuine, expressing happiness for me without a hint of the jealousy or resentment I had feared. We began a cautious correspondence, rebuilding a connection on new terms with clear, firm boundaries. My grandmother came to visit that summer, her first trip to California. At 82, she was still sharp and independent, navigating the airport and Uber to our apartment with determined efficiency. She brought family photos and stories, creating a bridge to the past that felt healing rather than painful. "You look happy, Anna," she observed as we walked along the beach near the Golden Gate. "There's a light in you I haven't seen in years. I am happy I realized. Truly happy, maybe for the first time in my adult life. Through this entire journey, I've learned that family is supposed to respect boundaries, not demolish them," I told her. "Love doesn't demand the sacrifice of your autonomy or the surrender of your body." My grandmother nodded, squeezing my hand. "You've always been the strong one," she said. "Even as a little girl. I think that's why they pushed so hard. They never expected you to push back." As my pregnancy progressed, I reflected often on the irony of the situation. Had my parents and sister simply respected my choice and given me time, who knows what might have happened naturally, perhaps in a different context of love and respect, rather than coercion and manipulation. I might have considered helping Sophia through egg donation or other means, but their actions had closed that door permanently. The greatest lesson in all of this has been about the meaning of family. True family lifts you up, respects your boundaries, and loves you as you are not for what you can provide or sacrifice. Sometimes the hardest thing is standing firm when those who should support you most are the ones demanding you compromise your most fundamental rights. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my parents. Their actions went beyond simple disagreement or misunderstanding into the realm of criminal violation. But I've found peace in building my own family based on mutual respect and genuine love. Standing up for yourself is never selfish. When others try to claim ownership of your body or life, the family we choose can be stronger than the family we're born into. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to draw a line that cannot be crossed, even when it hurts, even when it means leaving behind those who should have protected you most. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure for your own well-being? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit like and subscribe. Remember that your body is always your choice, no matter what anyone tells you. And thank you for listening to my journey of finding strength when I needed it most.